Hi, I'm Miki. Nice to have you all here. I am here to demonstrate deconstruction of a teapot. I think teapot is one of those forms where people tend to feel a bit, I don't know, they struggle with form, they struggle with, what's the right thing to do on all the different pieces. Why do they come together in such a way? What's right, what's wrong? I don't know if there is such a thing as right or wrong. There is your way of doing it. Today I'm showing you my way of doing it. I started out with hating to make a teapot. About 60 years ago, I made a teapot, and it was the worst, the most horrendous piece of teapot I have ever made, ever constructed anything. So I said, I am never, ever, ever making another teapot. 2 years later, I started making teapots and haven't stopped since. What was it about that was wrong? I don't know. I just struggled with it, and I just couldn't get the form. It wasn't pleasing to me aesthetically. It had the spout, it had the lid, it had everything. It stood, it poured. It was just butt ugly. Okay, so moving on, several years later, I started throwing my teapots and experimenting with different handles, different surface treatments, firing methods. I've got tape on your, hint, you put tape on your lids so they don't fall when you unpack. Just make sure you take the tape off when you're demonstrating. So this is a cone 6. These are all cone 6 pots, hand built, and then these are all thrown pieces. This one I made after a George domestic demonstration, and I played with some reed handles. I like these reed handles, but they hurt my hands so much. I stopped making them.
To do the making?
Yeah, of the handle itself. I like them a lot. I stopped making them because I started getting blisters in my hands. I have very delicate hands, apparently. So I needed to find a way that makes handles a little more interesting to me. I also liked texture on my pots, and these were hand individually punched in texture. Well, there's got to be a better way of making these textures. So then I discovered hand building. I've always been a wheel thrower. It's been something that I thought came to me easily, and so I made teapots out of them. I started hand building, and I fell in love with it for many reasons. I can get texture on my pieces fairly easily, and as you all know, these are, doilies. Crochet doilies that I picked up. I've also used stamps and other things, and they were pleasing to me in that I didn't have to worry about so much of the glazing, because I wanted the depth of the glazing, the texture that the glazing gave me, but didn't get enough of that in a thrown pot. I could have done all the textures and do glazing tricks, but I'm lazy as well. So I got into textures and cone 6. It wasn't enough for me to go to cone 6 and play with glazes. This is my own glaze that I played with. I like the pooling, I like the microcrystals that I was getting in cone 6, but it was a lot of work. And then I got into wood fire. Wood fire with texture was something I was very cautious about. I didn't know how it was going to turn out, but I just loved how all the different elements, you turn it around, you find something new. That's how I got started in wood fire. So these are different techniques. Going back to my reed handles, I wanted that, but how do I get that with clay? And these are all clay, start to finish. Those are just coils wrapped around. These are the things that you do with these kind of handles. So that's how I evolved into those. The feet. I like my teapots to stand up. The way to do that with thrown pots is to make a bigger foot. My feet never got big. I just never left enough clay on the bottom. I could build that up, but I just couldn't. I'm short, so maybe my teapots are short. So here we are. Here are my heels. What I like about the fact that it stands up is that teapots on the bottoms get hot, and it makes your table steam up, and sometimes it could damage. So that's why when you have thrown foot, they usually make a steam hole to let the steam escape. I don't have to do that with these. They stand up nice and tall, and I think it gives a certain personality to them. Okay, how do I get there? I've developed a teapot template. I've developed some templates that help me create my shapes faster. I was, okay. Oh. So I started making some round forms. I don't know, I like round teapots. You've seen a lot of different shapes. Me, I like my teapots round. And some, alterations to the form, but they start round. I started all of my teapots with a form like this. This is a foam paper. When you cut a radius, you turn it, it's a cone. It's the top of your teapot, right? You make it a lot smaller. Your spout. You cut it smaller, it's your base. When you cut a middle out, this is a little big. Okay, punch a hole, it's a lid. Okay, so this is kind of what it looks like. I know you can't see that on paper, but with this much clay, it's an 11 by 14, 11 by 17 piece of paper, you can get a teapot. And it lays out like this. That is one teapot. You use all the scraps to make whatever else decorations you want to make, but that is a making of a teapot. That will give you a teapot. So I've pre-made some forms, and I will show you how some of these forms come together fairly easily. You know how to add texture. I'm not going to add the texture for you, if that's okay.
If Lynn says it's okay.
It's okay? Is it cold in here? Nose is runny, I'm sorry. Hot mold, plaster mold. I made this with Jamie Mader workshop. Yeah. Smooth sculpture, when you first take it out of the bag, it's super wet. So I'm just going to show you what I would do when it's that wet. You would actually make a score, but I think if you've taken any of Elaine Pinkernell's workshops, she just presses them together and they stick.
So you're working with your clay pretty wet?
I do. And then I let it set. When you have texture, you can't press that hard. But I don't have texture.
Does it stick to your mold at all?
I'm sorry?
Will it come off the mold easily?
It will. When you let it set for a little bit and harden, it just lifts right off. That's the beauty of plaster. All right, so this is this form right here, and we need to make that round. You know what's also good about that? You know what that inside dimension is going to be, right? So I take this is a lid. That's what it ends up being. After texture, is that how it comes together? Okay. and I measure this. And I think you're all familiar with hand building techniques. Do I need to go over those at all? Thank you.
Where did you get that little metal?
This? Your cookie cutter. It comes in a whole set of like all different sizes. This was from a different set. I've got these guys.
I know
They-
I have that one over here, but
Oh, don't know where I picked it up.
I just saw them at Teapot.
Sur la table. Sur la table. And they come in all different ones. I think I stole this from the set in the kitchen from my husband. My husband bakes. And so he's got all these beautiful tools, and I steal them once in a while. And then I have to go buy him another one. But he doesn't notice they're gone because he doesn't come into my studio to look for them. So I know my inner dimension for this lid flange, right? So get all my tools. And normally I would score depending on the, well, I would normally score here.
Is your clay a 1/4 inch thick or more?
This is just a little bit more than a 1/4 inch. My clay, when I make my teapots, they're about 1/4 inch, if not a little bit thinner. All my pots are a bit thinner. You can kind of tell what the dimensions are by looking at my lid. Of course, this is wood fire, so it's been shrunken like crazy. Oh, that one's extra thin. You can check here. That's a little bit smaller than a 1/4 inch. So that I know that if it fits inside of my, excuse me, cookie cutter, that it's gonna fit inside here. And then
brilliant.
You're so smart.
you do it enough times, you kind of come up with, you know, shortcuts. So then, since I know what this size is, I know that I can just put it on my lid, give it a little bit of a push, score. Put it back on this guy, tap it down. Okay, so that's how body and the lid is put together. Now I know that's going to fit. That's going to sit there for a while. I started making this version to show you another way of modifying your body without using your hump mold if you don't have them. Upside down, a rib. Okay, it's a little wet.
Do you want a bending wheel?
Yes. I think, Henriette, no, I think there may be one over by Sean's station. But I'll be done by the time she gets back. But you get the idea.
Now, when you're doing a teapot at home in your studio,
Yes?
do you do it how you're showing us here, where you do one at a time, or are you working on several at once?
I work, to be honest, my teapot, beginning to end, from cutting to putting my feet on and my handles on, 3 hours. I've timed it. I tried faster, 3 hours.
You do one complete teapot at a time.
No, I've done up to 3 at a time. Each additional took an extra hour. So, and that's being kind of generous because sometimes something like these guys take a lot more hand holding. These guys are easier, but those. I think I'm at 1 out of 3 in the success rate of having, thank you. Success rate of 1 out of 3. my little guys fall off during bisque, I put them back on. Paper clay is great. I glaze. I take it from place to place and I bump them, tap them, they fall off. After bisquing, I take it and I glaze it, and I can go over glazing techniques for the teapots as well later. But after glazing, the wood firing is also a, you never know what you're going to get out of the wood fire. It will stick to things and it will break during transport. So 1 out of 3 of these guys survive. They're my Warrior Teapot series. Labor of love. But out of the gas fire or the electric kiln, they're pretty good. I don't get the atmospheric effects that I really fell in love with, so they don't have that yumminess, but form-wise, I'm happy with them.
I'm sorry, what kind of clay do you use?
Today is smooth sculpture. It does, I'm not sure what the makeup is. There is, yeah. I guess it's super smooth. You can feel free to feel these guys. At the studio, I use East Bay's Donegal, which has a similar feel. These guys are made with Donegal from East Bay clay. Jerry?
Do you have a slab roller at home?
I have a mini roller. I got it from a Mother's Day present or something. You know, you become a potter and your gifts become a Dremel tool, diamond bits. Don't you just love it? What happened to the bling? Anyway. So this is a little wet for me to be forming, but I work from the inside out, upside down.
So did you do those that way originally before you made the molds?
Yes. Before I realized I could have used the molds. It took a while before I got there. In fact, I think using the molds to form this way, has been maybe since I moved to Higher Fire, which was January? Yeah. Even then, it took me a few times to realize, maybe if I use the molds. So I let it sit this way. That's wonky. There's your organic form. Anyway, so here we are. The next thing I do is to form all of my other pieces while these guys set. I need these guys to set because when they come together, they need to be able to hold together and stand up on their own because I flip them right side up to add my handles. Okay, so let's start making our handles. This is what it ends up being. And for one like this, okay? One like this, I use 2 of these guys. Oops. I cut them off at the thicker end, put 2 together, wrap them together, right? So they come in all different shapes and sizes. If you fold them a little bit closer, becomes that. They are hollow. They do not have a hole in them. I do not poke a hole. You dry them well enough, they don't explode. I haven't had a hollow handle explode on me. I've had other places explode, but not the handles. Even my knob here, my little knob is thrown, and that's a hollow knob. Why do I make them hollow? Because you could probably roll these. They don't dry at the same rate. So you've got the body at a certain width, and you've got these handles that are solid, and they're not going to dry at the same rate. You might, I don't know if they'll be dry in 2 weeks. It depends. Making them hollow at the similar weight ensures that they're going to dry at about same time. They're also not heavy. You see how thin they are in the connection points. They're not heavy. If they're heavy, they'll fall over. There are ways to support these guys as they're drying, but I want them to be able to stand there. Let's see if it'll stay. So that's basically what it's going to do. They're about at the same dryness right now, so it would be a great time to put it together. So let's start making my handles. I love this mesh. It's nylon. It comes out of clementines. Sometimes the clementines comes with a very hard edge. Those cut. I prefer this.
It's like avocado.
Avocados, yeah. The ones that comes out of clementines, they're more plastic, and they cut the clay. When they cut the clay and you're trying to form, it really cuts open. It's like scoring your clay versus embedding texture. I roll the texture on and I make my edges thin, my ends thinner. And they give a really cool snake-like texture on the handles. And I, reuse them in different areas like the spout, sometimes on the bottom or not. Okay, so here we go. They're bulbous in the middle because I want them to fold. And it's really a matter of coaxing them into shape. And I usually use my handy dandy foam paper. My handy dandy foam paper is awesome because if you decide to form, I didn't bring any bucket of water. I don't have any water. Huh.
Do you need some?
I think I'm okay so far. When I wet this foam paper, it stays moist. And so my work stays a little bit more wet while I'm trying to form it.
Where do you buy it?
Michael's. Go look for where the construction paper is, or something felt paper, felt sheets. That's. And again, we're just coasting them close together. And yes, I would score and slip, but for demonstration purposes, to move this along, to finish on time. Finish on time? My timer isn't showing. It's gone to sleep. So, this is what it looks like. I like showing seams on this. If you don't want the seams to show, you could, let's try it. I got another one. Let's try it. What I would do is thin this out and form. I want to get to the spout, so what I would do is form the piece and add texture after, right?
Couldn't you reverse it, Miki, though, too, and have the seam on the inside?
It doesn't work with this template. You would have to use a different template, and we can talk about forming that template because it takes. Since I like the seam on the top. The template would look like a smiley face, mirrored smiley face. Yeah. There's got to be somebody with geometry history back here.
If you did the other way, the clay would wrinkle, wouldn't it?
Yeah, clay would not want to move that way. I can show you. Why not?
It's plastic.
Well, now you're reverse coaxing it, but I bet it would work.
Unless it's so hard that you can't move it, but if it's flexible, it's going to move.
there's more clay on this side. And so you would do a lot of, you would break through. If you had texture on here, this would thin out and break through. Your texture would break through because of all the excess clay that's. So it's definitely worth experimenting. It's not something that I would do.
Another approach.
Yes, definitely. So if you were to not have texture at all, you smooth that guys down. And because it's enclosed, air is trapped inside, you will be able to hold that form. It's enclosed. No air. It'll, yeah. Okay, so it's not perfect right now, but
Perfect is overrated.
yeah. All right, that's how that goes. So I'm gonna let that set. It's getting a little crowded over here. How you doing? All right, so now I've got a nice flat bottom. I would, go in there and coax that down and even that out. And this one's getting a little dry. Ooh. I like to have my lids hug a little bit. So while it's still a little wet, almost leather, I would coax this guys down. Because when you look at the profile, I don't want it to be like. And when it's leather hard, it's not going to stick to each other as much. And if you are worried about it, cornstarch in between, or I use toilet paper. Toilet paper is soft, and it forms and it peels off, it burns off. You don't even have to take it off. So I like toilet paper, like single layer, single sheet, because they come 2-ply or however. Unless you use Scott's. Yeah, so there you go. Spout. I've got one started. Very similar principle here. I start with the same thickness because I know that when I roll it, it will thin out. And I roll in that circular motion because when you roll, it stretches all wonky and you want it to follow the form that you're creating. So when you're going straight across, you're going to warp this form. You can always go back to your template and cut it back out, but I don't mind the extra stretch. Bless you. This is an initial cut for the opening. Again, I would smooth out all of the. Okay, I'll do it properly. So this is another situation where I'm going to show a seam and purposely offset it, because what I do with these is distort the form, the body of the spout in a way that you might, the seam isn't nice and straight. If I was an engineering type and got a better grade in geometry in high school, I might actually figure that out. But once I put it together, dowel rod. Oh, here it is. Dowel rod. Dowel rod. Home Depot. Chopstick. Although chopstick is harder wood, this is I don't know. Pine. Pine. Okay. So right, we need a spout like that. I started forming these spouts and I kept on enclosing in on the opening. So when I stuck end of a brush or a dowel rod, I don't mess up that opening and I can create that shape without using water, because water doesn't give me that thing. Oh, there's my seam. Okay. All right. My seam is centered, so I'm going to move that. There. I'm going to create, and all I'm doing is pushing out from the inside. Right? Okay. I set these guys back down. Spout, this is based on a triangle, right? Spout doesn't sit that way. If you see, I couldn't just stick it. Ooh, I've got demos. Oh, look what I got. I've made a few. I cut it at an angle, and I kind of came up with a few different shapes. And sizes. I think this guy should be more like this.
Chicken ones too.
Yeah, I agree.
So there's a lot of science behind what angle a spout should go at, how you should cut it, you know, and I've experimented with a lot of different shapes, a lot of different ways of cutting off the spout itself. And I will show you how these things pour and my rationale on why it pours that way. Well, basically, it should be about 45-degree angle from the pour side to the body itself. Your spout, pour right here is the bottom of the lip, should be higher than your water level or at water level. And I've done this before where it's nice and, ooh, it's kind of cool to have it hanging out. Yeah, I got this much water into my pot. I've had it up too high. And what happens is when you pour, before, see? I don't have a lot of water. So before I even get to the water line, it will never pour out. It will pour out of your tub before it pours out of your spout. So, yeah, it's like these things you have to do a lot of Google thing, and I don't think I was really Google savvy when I started making teapots. So, a lot of experimenting. I tried making planter watering cans for planters. That's how I learned water level, the spout direction, and anywho, that's that. So those are my glaze sample thingy. Oh, okay. Using a little hump mold like this is also very nice in figuring out where I'm supposed to cut this guy. Obviously, that's a bit big. Back to my dowel rod. I think this is the new one. Let's use the old one. Okay. I think that's still a little too big. So let's cut it down. I think I want it to be more like this. I don't know if you can tell. I want it to be more like this versus up so high. So I would need to chop this down about 1/4 inch or so. And when it's nice, you know, it's not quite leather. It's just a little softer than leather. I can move it around and it won't change form. Okay. So I would take my mold, set it down. I use whatever tool I can find to get what I need. So that's going to give me the even height all the way around. And I'm scoring. And scoring is just making a nice little line, not going all the way through because I don't want to cut my plaster mold. So you can tell that's thinner on one side, thicker on the other. And it was sitting off center, yes. Yes, yes. I made sure that it was leveled, as in the spout was pointing in the right direction. So I just cut where the score line is. Okay. Oh, this is an X-Acto that I've been using for about 10 years. It's quite dull. It will still cut clay, and it might cut you if you are forceful enough, but if you're working with clay, you shouldn't have that kind of a heavy hand. I don't know. So I haven't cut myself yet. I've cut myself on the metal ribs and other knives, poked myself with a pin tool. It's What do you think? I think it's leaning too far. I don't know. I think it's okay. All right. So let's start there. So I've made the spout. I've made these guys. Maybe I should go over that before I go into the spout. Strips. I'm still using the initial amount of clay that I've rolled out. I start my strips this way. Fairly easy. I can put texture on it. And again, I roll it out to thin it a bit, lengthen it, because I can always cut it down. I don't want it too thick because I can't roll it on itself. I don't score and slip on these guys. So I take a corner. People call this like crab legs. They look like crab legs. Some people say, oh, your teapots look like a turtle. Okay. I've stopped taking offense to your whatever looks like blah blah to me. That's great. You find a connection to a piece. Buy it. You can call it whatever you want. You buy it. So I just rolled it over. I'm gonna cut off to make it flat so that they sit up, because I want them to dry. What I would do is just blend from the inside so that they don't separate while drying, because that's your biggest worry, is that it will unroll itself as it's drying. So you just blend it in from the inside. You can score and slip, but this is something you would do while the clay is really wet, so that it'll be flexible enough and your texture won't crack. I've worked with a few different clay bodies. Smooth sculpture seems to work really well. The Donegal that I mentioned works well. I like B-Mix. It's got really good plasticity and it works well as well. Smoothzilla. Clay Planet makes Smoothzilla. It's beautiful in the wood fire. It's got great oranges when it comes out. Okay? So I will end up having to cut that down to fit my teapot eventually, but I let it sit. I need this to harden up as much as my body. So it's the first thing I form and make and let it set dry, because it's going to sit on there while I put my handles on. Because once I put my handles on, I don't want it to move. It's a little precarious sitting on that little point. Okay, going back to my spout. Okay. I like my seam over to the side. I've done it in the back. I have to make sure it's the center, but as with things that are built in around and then altered, it tends to shift, the seams tend to shift. I could modify my template, but again, geometry. Yeah, so I make that an intentional part of my design. That's good. Excuse me, my nose is running. You know, I found that I use very little tools. Mark my circle. So, pouring. When you pour, there are certain things that happen. And this is something I take into account for and I'm gonna have you pay attention to the water flow itself. I don't remember how these pour, so be a nice surprise. Okay. What I like when I pour my teapots is a nice steady stream of water that's pretty. I don't like it to gurgle around. That's okay. That's not bad. Let's try a different one. So there's a pour I'm looking for. Hey, they're all watertight, guys. This one spout, I'm not all that happy about. Let's see what happens. See how that pours funky? It goes. And there's a delay in the pour itself. Okay. When I pour, the water should come out almost immediately, but there's a delay and pops. There's a pop in the way that it flows. So the water is flowing into this reservoir and then pops out with force. You see it, it's not the best spout. Tell you why that's happening. It's almost at a 90-degree angle. It's, there may be also a clog in the strainer itself. And what happens when there's a clog in the strainer, the water isn't coming out from all sides and gathering and coming out with some force. Like this one has all of its, but it's got a big mouth. So it's gonna pour not from the whole space, but just in the half of it. And it's got a nice stop. So there's a pour and there's a stop of the water itself. Water stops clean when there is a sharp edge. Think about your milk jugs. Does it have that little thing? No. What about any of the water bottles you've seen? There's a sharp edge. I mean, not sharp enough that you cut yourself, but there's a sharp cutoff. You do have to help, you know, for a teapot, you do want to help it a little bit, but I think it's aesthetic that it is curved this way. But what it does is helps it to retract the water back, comes back this way, and this is gonna cut the water off. So while this is a little bit drier, it's a little wet now, so I won't do it. But well, yes, I'll do it just to demonstrate. While it's a little drier, your knife will cut through better. You can go down or you can go up. There's a nice sharp edge, okay? So I've got the water that's, tea will retract back through the curve, and it also gets cut off, okay? So now that I've got that set, I want to mark where my seam line is because I need to know where to attach it back. When I have the seam, it's easy for me to mark where their seam meets the mark that I make. The next thing is how to make the water flow into the small, narrow space. When you let the water go from big area to small area, it will flow with nice, clean water line, like a faucet. When you open up a faucet, there's this beautiful, Kohler makes beautiful faucets where the water just comes out beautifully. Water fountain, shoots, there's force that comes out through that. And so sometimes it has a nice, have you ever seen those fountain in the gardens where the water jumps from one end to the other? That's all force. You need to create that force. And the only way to create that is to make the water come through in a bigger area than what you're coming out. So this is a very small hole, and I've got a big area here that I can't very see. There we go. And you start with 7. So let's see if I can do this backwards. Find the center. And I don't go straight down. I know my water's coming from the bottom and pouring this way. So I facilitate that by going down at an angle. This is how the water will come out. So it's not going in straight 90 degrees from the floor. It's pretty much on an angle this way. And this guy. I think I'm off sides here because I'm at a strange angle. I might have to redraw my... Usually it would be a little more even all the way around. Okay, bear with me here. Pretend this is all perfect and it's got a nice circle. Okay. All right, so that's definitely bigger than my area, okay? I use a smaller hole cutter because I like loose leaf in my tea. I use loose leaf. I also hang tea bags in there, but loose leaf is what I like. Not matcha leaves, more like Darjeeling and jasmine, dragon pearls. Oh, jasmine balls, the dragon balls, awesome. Okay, this I would definitely scratch, score, and slip. I like to attach this not at leather hard, a little bit wet. So what I would normally do is let this dry on my foam paper because it'll stay wetter in this at the bottom than it is at the top. So it gives me a little bit of room, wiggle room for when I attach it. And I press down. And yes, I attached this before I attached the bottom, because now I can go under and give it some pressure and all that yucky stuff. And that's a technical term. All that yucky stuff, I go in there and I clean out. I should have done that before I attached the spout. And blow hair dryer. These guys. When you hair dryer these guys, and then you just flake them off, it comes out nice and clean. So why? Because I want that water to flow in there. When I have all that cruddy stuff sticking out, water's not going to flow through that very easily. Glaze is going to get all caught up, and you will have a clogged hole. Okay? There. Pretend this is nice and beautifully put together. Let's see how we're doing here. It's still a little wet. So what I'm going to do, I would like this a little bit drier so that when I do this, it doesn't wrinkle. Tupperware. Remember the template I made? These came out of I don't know, some packing stuff. I collect all these guys. Your cone pack boxes also have these things. And when you cut it in a circle and cut up, this can turn into any size you want. And it doesn't add texture to your clay. And it'll sit nicely. I want this clay exposed because I'm going to knead it. But the bowl, you can use any kind of bowl. Salad bowl, soup bowl. I would score.
I'm sorry, is that foam dampened?
Nope, nope. I need it dry, so I don't dampen that one. I really need it to be much drier than this. But it's not gonna happen. Okay, let's see. So this is drier than this. Not optimal. I want it to be at the same consistency. Because we know that when it dries when it's a different dryness, it will shrink at a different rate and it will separate. Scoring helps to even that out. So what you would do is let it dry very slowly.
You don't want to use the little heat guns or anything to make it
I
even?
don't usually. I don't know why this dried it at a complete. I mean, they were made at the same time. They should have. Heat guns I don't like because it will only dry the top out and then the inside is still moist and the moisture comes back and it's still drying at an uneven rate. Outside,
Dryer is better. Hair dryer. Not
hair
so-
dryer.
Not so strong.
Hair dryer is not so strong. And yes, I use a hair dryer because I don't like heat guns. They're scary.
Well, yeah. Besides, it's too much. But
They're scary. Yeah. How did I know that that was going to meet up? Anyone have a guess? How did I know that was going to match? How did I get that template right? Okay, so attaching, I'm just pinching them together. Whether you want that seam shown or not, it's up to you. It's all aesthetically, you make those choices on your own. I'm not gonna tell you how to make your teapot, right? Okay, how did I make that? All right. You saw me make the rounds. I have all different sizes of these guys, which I'm not gonna find right now. So let's use this guy. All right. Pretend this is a nice clean sheet of paper. You haven't seen it. And I want to make my teapot, like this. I'm going to measure that. I'm going to measure the width and give it another notch or two. Because when it forms when it forms down, it's going to be a little bit smaller, right? If it's bigger, you can always trim it down. That's easy enough. So you do have to measure this compass. I found my husband's compass, 30-year-old compass set. It's a new discovery. So now I'm using a compass to draw out my circle, and then I cut it out, and I know it's going to meet up perfectly. Like that. Okay. So that's how we know that that's going to measure. That's going to meet up at the same rate. All right. I think I need to speed it up a bit. Let's pretend the bottom is nice and firm, and that this is nice and clean together. This came out of a martini packaging. The glass sat like this, and it held in place, and there were two glasses. It's foam. I have another one somewhere. Yeah, It's foam. It's just like this one, but it's firmer. You can make these. You can just go Joanne Fabric. You know, those foam. You guys make the foam bats for trimming, right? So because this is not dry enough, it's going to sag. And let's pretend it's already dry, okay? I'm gonna want to figure out how I want my feet. I like the short leg because I want him to stand up proud. Well, I don't know why it's a him. It's a him.
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah?
Quiet. Good for you.
Okay. So there he goes. Like that. I don't think he's tall enough. Let's see. Oh, here's the other guy. Before I had that round doohickey, I just roll these guys up. And figure out how I want him to sit. And because I want the backside lower, I use a lower foot intentionally. And then I support him this way.
Is it a functional choice to have the back foot lower than the other two?
For me, it's aesthetic.
Okay.
It's coming together. Okay. Pretend that it's attached. Let's see. Now I look at, oh, you know what? This is tall enough. But this is too what? What do we think? It comes off? There's plenty of room for the lid to be lifted off and down. What? It'll all shrink together. It'll all shrink together. I think maybe a little bit wider. Right? Okay. Bring out my handy dandy to roll out. What was this for? I don't know. Okay. Oh. Awesome. Let's see. I can just make lugs. Then I won't be able to use those guys. I can coil that down. Let's see. This one's got an interesting little doohickey. That's nice too. These guys are coiled together with a little thingy. So let's do something like that. And now that I have water, I'm gonna wet. Not a lot, because then it'll be all goopy and you'll end up making slip. What I realized is when I was rolling coils out and twisting it around all over, it would crack. And someone said, keep it moist. Duh. So the first one that we saw was I've got wider on the bottom, smaller on the top, because what's going to happen is it's going to sit inside.
Very nice.
Okay? Flatten it out. Today I just have water and clay. Where I attach it is another aesthetic choice, and I'll show you when it's not good. On the front part, because it's a smaller space, I make a smaller loop. And what I should have done with the other one, which I forgot to do, is blend it, because it does also come undone. But I also add a lot of slip inside. Now that I have that down, I can decide which way it goes and where I want to attach it. Okay? How are we doing on time? Oh, yay.
Yeah, plenty of time.
Wow.
Do you fire pieces at home?
No. My landlord said that I couldn't fire my electric kiln for liability. Right? That means switching houses. I haven't found one yet. It's I've got a great deal. Okay. Well, basically, now we slip and score and stick it in. I've got a half an hour. Okay, good. So I've actually like stuck them in there so that it's actually holding it together. Okay. All right. We need to dry this guy slow, right? All right, so I'm gonna nitpick.
Wait. Can I take a picture?
You do have to move it from here into your kiln room or dry room or wherever. And I've knocked this handle off many times. And sometimes as it's drying, it will shift and tilt and whatever. It likes to just move around. I love tape. Sometimes I use plastic. Plastic tends to take collect moisture, condensation underneath, and it re-wets, and it takes forever to dry. That's not long enough. Paper towel, okay. Paper towel is also a great little guy. Toilet paper. I've got a roll of toilet paper. I'm just impatient.
That is true.
Yes. Yeah. It's not that it's sticky and it's sticking onto it. All we need for this to do is stay straight. 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 Okay. It's not pretty while it's drying, but I use paper towel to create that. And I wet the paper towel just a little bit, and it'll stick to my pot. And as it dries, as the paper towel dries, it'll expand a little bit and then shrink back up, and it'll fall off as the handle is Okay, if that was longer. Here. Okay, so basic idea is that I am giving structure to it so that it'll stand up, okay? And it'll just dry like that, loosely covered, and I go in the kiln. I prefer painter's tape because it removes easily. Masking tape is a little too tacky for me. Paper towel, I don't use any tape. Sometimes I use paper towel and then Scotch tape. Yeah. Another thing that it does when you're using tape and things like that, and you've got a shape like this that likes to flip back out. Anything you manipulate down to a certain size or a certain shape, it'll expand back. It'll remember. Clay remembers, right? So if you want to keep it a certain shape, make sure it doesn't move. There. Huh? So while it's up there, you can still create this. I used to make super long handles like this, and I had a hard time making it stand up that way.
Dried halfway.
Okay. So use all the little tricks and tools and stuff you have around the house. I don't have fancy tools. They get expensive. And I just, end up using that. Glazy, thank you. Glazing. Okay. I brought a pot that I don't like. Tell me why.
Handles in the wrong spot. The back foot isn't low enough.
Right?
So many things.
Right? What the heck? It didn't line up. It didn't line up. It didn't line up. Come on. Would you be happy with that? No. Would you be happy with that? Come on, you guys. Would you be happy with that? You wouldn't fire it. I wouldn't fire it. Huh?
Get your hammer out right away.
Right? Why it ended up in the bisque itself is a big question. It was covered up and drying in the bisque room. And this is what happens when you don't work out of your own house. You don't get to see the piece as it goes into the bisque firing because other people are firing it for me. I thank them profusely, but it should not have gone through firing.
Well, they didn't know what you were after.
Exactly. It's my fault for putting it in there. So there you go. My standards. It does. Glazing. Okay. This is not glaze, but pretend. We do a lot of pretending here today. Right? I'm covering the, whatever it's called, spout. Thank you. I pour it all the way to the top. Woo!
Woo!
And then some. Let's pretend it's an overflow. That's a good pour. It's a good pour. Too bad it's not a bad, it's a bad teapot. Oh, that's a nice pour. First in my offset series. Thank you. Thank you. Be forceful here. We want this glaze out of those holes. And then, right? Right? And then make sure, I like to look at the light and see my holes and make sure that all the glaze is. And if it's still not working, pipe cleaner, right? Because the worst thing is forgetting to clean out your strainer. Yeah. How many of you have done that? Forgot to clean it out. Oh, I'm done. Fire it. Okay. What else? Oh, okay. So I did the inside. Inside all my pots are, if not clear, food safe.
I have a shortcut for you though.
Yeah.
For the strainer.
Yeah?
I was taught that you put your hand over the spout, and you're tipping your bisque pot, your teapot, and you pour water so that it just gets into the strainer part.
Oh,
And then you let it count to 5, let it go, and then your glaze will not stick to that wet
right.
part. So
But it'll,
to work pretty good.
but
Before you glaze. Is that
yeah,
before
that
you
would be
glaze?
before you glaze, but I wouldn't have a lot of,
Trade off.
it's, yeah, yeah. Okay.
3.
Huh?
3.5.
Count to 3.5. Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty well.
Okay.
Do you
Yes.
only use a clear glaze?
No, Tomoku is nice. I've done some Celadon. Woodfire is a bit different. This is a good glaze inside and out. So it just basically dips. I dip the whole thing in and pour out. My glazes are a little bit runnier because the amount of time it pours
Yeah.
to pour out of there.
Take it a lot of glaze.
Yeah, because I want a different glaze on the outside or none at all on the outside. I've done some oxide washes on the outside or glaze and I wipe it off because I wanted that additional glaze texture effect, the depth to the surface itself. I'm not happy with just one glaze and be done. I want some depth to it, and so that's why the texture is there. That's why wood firing is such an appeal to me, because there is so much to look at. Okay, stop pouring. Questions?
Yeah, on glazing.
Yes.
If you were to use the same glaze from the that you're using inside, you should still dip the inside and then brush the outside, right? Because if you were to dip it outside as well, I mean,
So
of the
I
specific shape it has, I guess you would end up over dipping.
over dipping, right?
I guess.
So if I'm using the same glaze inside and outside, the whole thing goes in
At the same time.
at the same time. I'm sorry. If not, I let the inside dry while it's not, so not completely dry, because I've had the outside glaze flake off or the inside glaze flake off. So when I see that inside is not shiny, like it's super wet, sometimes I would wad up a piece of clay in my spout, because I don't want that to go in. It can, if you've got glazes that like to move when they're together, it might be kind of nice to have that glaze, but stick a clay in there. Make sure you put it, dip it right away, because as it dries, it'll come right out and you'll have clay inside your glaze. So you want to stick it in while it's wet and then immediately dump it down. I've tried tape it in and cut it out. Cork? You could do cork. You could do cork. After you finish your glazing, I wipe off the lip, because no matter how sharp you have it, if you've got glaze on it, the water will follow it down. It will have some residual glaze, and those don't seem to bother as much. When it's super sharp in this manner, it didn't seem to matter much at all. This guy drips because the glaze is completely covered from the inside to the outside. I might actually take a Dremel. I'm like echoing into my pot. Take a Dremel and sharpen the edge down to give it a nice, clean finish.
Have you done that before?
No, I've got some pots that I need to, but I will do that. There'll be a difference in the clay body, and you will see, especially ones that's gone into oxidation, you'll end up with some graying of the clay itself. But for a lighter clay with lighter glaze, I don't think it should matter much.
You mean you would take the Dremel tool in the bisque stage, not after you?
I might actually do it after I fired, because if I really hate it, I'm not gonna keep it to begin with. So, try it out, right? It's another reject. It came out of the bisque completely with the handle completely fallen off. Apparently, my paper clay had too much paper in it. So it was like using toilet paper to put my pieces together. While it held up through the drying, it didn't hold up.
But from what I hear about paper clay, you could put paper clay on that and re-bisque it.
I
I
could.
haven't done it, but I've heard that word.
Yeah, you can do bisque fix type.
We've been doing that with some success.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, do I really love it so much that I would want to?
You spent 3 hours on it. Yeah,
I know.
9 hours.
It could be a fantastic glaze experiment.
It's a
Seriously.
it's a great. Yeah. Any other questions? Anything else? Thank you so much. Oh yes, I'm sorry.
I got here a little late. Can you tell me about your templates? How
My
you developed them?
Oh, Michael's. Go look for felt paper, construction paper area, or where they sell felt squares. Yeah. I draw out a circle. I've got many different size circles. I mean, and I usually make them this way. For this purposes, I cut them all out. I think this is a really neat way to keep your templates in order. Cut them out in the same size, in the same color. Put them in a bag.
Someone who made this for today.
Yes. Yes, because I don't usually do. That's why they're all kind of different sizes. I forget which template I use for which size, and so I would start making them. I've got marks all over. This one's a small teapot over here. It's supposed to be 6 1/4 inch, so I can write on here and try to remind myself. But I don't know what this one was for.
How did you then develop the center that comes up to be the part? Yeah, that. Right.
That I started making it this way. It's all wet. Everything's wet. And I wanted a little more height in the flange. So let's see here. So when I did that, I needed to make the inner hole, so the inner section, a little smaller to give me enough clay to create this. Right. So if I wanted this to be without this guy, I would just start much lower.
Wait, could you explain? I'm not sure what you're saying.
Oh,
I'm lost.
sorry. She wanted to know how I developed this.
Okay. Okay.
What's this called? Anyone?
No, it's okay.
Flange? Is that the flange as well?
I think they both are.
Okay.
Goes down in and back.
So the height of the flange. The height of the flange is determined by how low you go. Okay? So I can set these guys down. If I don't want the flange at all, I would just Bleh. Wow, that's beautiful. Okay.
Because you're a professional.
Here. Oh, look. Ah, okay.
There you go.
Okay. If you were to make the back leg, you know, much shorter, you can always put the hole in a different spot. Right? It doesn't always have to be perfectly symmetrical. So a teapot is an expression of your own aesthetic, right? You see me make this doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to go home and make this yourself exactly as it is. It can take any form and shape. Your mold could be deeper or shallower. You can make a very wide one. I mean, this one is wide and flat. Okay. Here's a more conical. Yeah. Make it more conical. This one is more bulbous. And they're all from a basic template using this and this as a base, or something like this as a base. You know, if I wanted this width, I figure out, okay, that's about right, right? So then I mark that and cut my clay to that size. So I'm only limited right now in the size, the paper size, because this is the original paper size, and I cut them out in all different sizes. Here it says it's a large teapot. Let's see. It doesn't seem very large, but you know, it's not any of these. I think it's a little bigger. Okay, it's a little taller. Okay, so limitless. Make your cones straight. You can just cut this down short and then blow it out. Bulge it out, round it out, or use it straight. It's just a matter of figuring out how you want this guy to pour. You know, making sure that making sure that your strainer or the hole where the water is coming out is much bigger than your spout lip. Okay, there's an angle to where the water line is going to land, right? So if you draw a line and tilt, you're gonna figure out where that water line is and where it's gonna start to pour water out. So this is gonna start pouring water out with a very minor tilt. If you had it lower, it'll take longer for that water to pour out. So that's something to consider. Handles are important. I think this is a more difficult pouring handle. It's heavier. It's not as ergonomic in my opinion. I like this. It's easier on the shoulder, the elbow. It's a tip of the wrist. This is an entire arm action, right? This gets heavy. Heaviness, your thickness of the clay factors into how heavy your pot's gonna be. Imagine water in it, how much heavier that's going to be. So if you have a teapot with a handle out here, how big do you think you can get this that you can manage it with one hand, right? How you want your teapot is really, I think it's subjective. I think there are different cultures with different style teapots that appeal to people, and culturally it's, you know, it's come down through ages. Can go in that route, or you can design your own and have your own interpretation of what a teapot is. I've seen, I have a piece in a teapot show, and Julia Feld was also in there too. And you see all these sculptural teapots. I couldn't figure out where it poured out of or how you would even hold it. Obviously, it's not as functional as, you know, a teapot should be, but again, it's interpretation, right? Some of us are sculptors and we like our teapots with more personality or sculptural aspect of it. It's not wrong. You decide whether you want it to be structurally functional, right? And go from there.
I was in a class taught by Lana Wilson, and somebody asked her, at what point did you decide to make your teapots not functional? And she said, when I discovered people will pay more money. That's functional. It really is. You have two kinds of round templates. You have the circle with just the slit cut in it, and then you have the green one where it's got that bite taken out of it. Is that because you have already decided that's the one? So that's a template for a pot you're going to make over and over and over.
This is a template for today's demonstration.
Okay.
I wanted it to be easy for me to duplicate for the 2 sessions that I'm putting together. So I decided, but I like it. I think I might do this for, I don't know, I don't know how many teapots I have, but thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.